Hey guys, welcome to day 2 of our winter squats to trots. So again, we're gonna review our rolling techniques to make sure everything's nice and loose still. I did some extra last night, and then we're gonna go through just a couple new stretches. So again, our stretches aren't just to stretch out the muscle, it's to make sure the muscle's tracking in the right way. So think about a rubber band. Your muscles and your joints and everything are supposed to be like a rubber band, especially when you're on a horse. Very key. So if you're just having a hard time walking in the straight, appropriate lane, then it's going to be hard when you're on a moving object trying to do the same thing. So you want to think of a rubber band. As you're on the horse, you want the top to remain nice and smooth and gliding across. The bottom half, however, is going with the horse. It's supposed to be giving and giving and giving and bringing it back into position every time to go with the movement of the horse. If you're not tracking in the right line and you have something, let's see if I can do this, and you have it out of alignment, it's not going to have as much room to give and you're going to be all over the place. So you're not going to have as much room to give with the horse. So if your horse is bouncy, you're not going to be able to give with them because their muscles are tight. They're not tracking in the right way. So you're not going to be able to move with the horse as well. Not your fault. It's not something that the instructor can say, I need you to do this, because you're going to try to force it and it's not going to be in a natural position for you because your body's out of alignment. So that's what this is all about, getting everything loose and back into alignment so you can actually use it correctly. So we're gonna take our foam roller, we're gonna get those IT bands again. So remember, those run down the side of your hip right here. So we're gonna take it, we're gonna go on our elbow, I'm gonna bend my knee still, and we're just gonna roll up and down. As soon as you find a spot right there, you're gonna hold it. So we don't have to do this very long. I did it again last night. So remember, you can do these multiple times. You just don't want to do it for super long times. Hold it. You can kind of roll around. So you can go roll back a little bit, roll forward a little bit. I feel it right there. And again, it's stretching across through my butt. So everything's connected. So I'm pressing down the side of my hip, but I'm feeling it in the back of my butt cheek. Good. So you want those all those fibers and your muscles and everything to kind of release. You don't want knots. So if I took this rubber band and I tied a knot in it, think of how little it would be effective. So we're gonna go other side, and same thing. I'm straightening my bottom leg, bending my top leg. Get it to where, right there. So as soon as you feel something, hold it there for a little bit, let it work itself out. Keep breathing, so don't hold your breath. If it's hurting so much you're holding your breath, take your bent leg and press off of it to take some of the pressure off. Keep your breathing going. Remember, a tight, knotted muscle is not a strong muscle. It's not going to have the give that you need when you're on your horse to absorb all the shock. All right, now we're gonna go to hip flexors. You can choose, again, either your foam roller or your ball on this one, whichever one you liked more and felt a little more. I'm gonna turn the foot that I'm rolling, I'm gonna turn that foot in and roll it up and down. So remember, I have the foam roller angled, top to bottom, coming across. As you're doing this, I want you to roll your hips under, press your hips into the foam roller. Don't exacerbate the problem by letting your back arch and your hips rotate in. Remember, that's one of the biggest misalignments that people have. So as you do everything, you want to take those hips and roll them. Take those hips and roll them. Every couple seconds, remind yourself. Flip that toe in, roll those hips, get them nice and straight now. So you don't want to lean too far into it. You want to get nice and straight right there. So again, my right side is still tighter than my left side. And you can start to feel it relax. So again, you can use that or the ball. Now we're gonna go to our lower back, and we are gonna use the ball on this one. So go ahead, take it, and you're just gonna put it right there in the small of your back. And again, as we're down here, don't let your back arch up. Roll your hips forward. Take your hips and roll them with your hands. Hold it right there. Now I want you to keep your hips nice and square. So you don't have to roll too much. This is more of a specific location, so you can kind of move the ball around a little bit. Keep your hips rolled in. Feel where you're the tightest. And then when you're ready, you're gonna switch the ball. Other side, again, roll those hips. Keep your hips in. Keep your shoulders down and relaxed. Try not to hold all that tension up. Relax your shoulders down, breathe. And then again, remind yourself, roll those hips. Hold that ball in place and just let it sit there for a few seconds. All right. Now we're gonna switch sides again, and we're gonna go more of that muscle that runs from your ribs down, so just a little bit higher on your back. So remember, your core wraps all the way down and attaches. All right, find it, and then again, roll your hips and get them nice and square. So you don't want your hips angled up. So especially if you're carrying a kid around all the time, if you're carrying water buckets, your hips get misaligned this way too. So we wanna make sure our hips are nice and square, because that's gonna make a big difference on our horse. If your hips are hiked to one side just kind of naturally now, that's how they're sitting, we can fix it, but that's how they are right now, you're gonna have more weight on one side than the other. So your horse is either gonna be moving off and away from you, and you're gonna say the horse has a bad side too, or your horse is going to have to compensate for you, and they're gonna have to work harder to lift your butt cheek up and keep you centered while they're misaligned now. So we don't wanna cause issues, switch sides, issues on our horse where they're having to compensate for us when we can be in here doing this when it's so cold outside, helping them out. So we wanna be as centered as possible as we can, especially if you've noticed you have to have one stirrup longer than the other. And you're just like, my legs are uneven. Occasionally that's true, but most likely your hips are uneven. So we get you aligned all better. Your hips are gonna be even, your stirrups are gonna be even, and you're gonna be sitting level in the saddle. So you're gonna absorb the shock through the stirrups a lot easier, a lot more effectively. Keep those hips rolled, keep those hips centered. All right. Now we're gonna go back to our foam roller, and we're gonna do the thoracic spine. So more up top right here. So remember, the most important part on this one is to keep your hips rolled. So we don't want to exacerbate the problem and arch our lower back in order to give over the foam roller. We want to roll our spine, put more weight into our back, and then hold your head. Oh. You might get some snap, crackle, pops. Again, sometimes you can feel or hear when you have a knot in your muscle, and that's where you want to kind of sit, let it sit there, and then roll it up and down. You might do little movements, you might do bigger movements to find it. Keep those hips tucked. This is one I end up doing every night, because as I showed you last time, my shoulders get protracted pretty easily. If you hold a lot of stress in you, your shoulders are gonna come up and in. Also depends on how you sleep. If you sleep on your side, this is how you sleep. You're constantly pushing those shoulders out and bringing your shoulders up and in. So just things you do every day for long periods of time add up. All right, last one we're gonna do is just the abdominal massage. I'm gonna use the ball and let it roll around here. I'll do both sides. So again, as you're in this position, don't let that lower back arch. I'm gonna roll my hips into the floor. Almost kind of squeezing my butt cheek. Right there. So remember, if you're using a tennis ball, it's gonna be a little softer. It's gonna be a little less pressure. So you can build, you can have a few different, there we go, a few different balls. I have just a small massage ball. It's hard, so that's going to be a step up from a tennis ball. You can also go to a bigger size, so you can go to like softball or anything like that. All right, I think we're ready to go on to some other just straight stretches. So now we're going to do a glute stretch. So the thing about the glutes is they slow you down as you're coming. So like in the squat position, your glutes are what's slowing you down. So if they're not in the correct alignment, you're not going to be able to do the correct squat, or your knees are going to be caving in, things like that. So we want to be able to have your glutes stretching in the correct way down your butt. So as you come down, they slow you down. It's the same exact thing when you're in the saddle. You need your glutes to slow you down as you're trotting, as you're cantering. You need them to take action and be in the correct position without you thinking about it so much. All right, so one leg goes straight. As you're sitting here, you're probably already in this position where your lower back is arched this way. So we want to roll those hips where you're pushing your lower back out, okay? And then you can pull your shoulders back. One leg out, one leg across, and then you turn just a little bit. So we're stretching the butt muscle down here. Push up into it, but don't let your back arch. So we want those hips to stay rolled. The other thing is I don't want you leaning off the weight. So again, we want those hips nice and square. So we're taking things that you've probably done a million times, and we're making you really think about it. The most important thing is for you to feel what your body is doing. So it doesn't matter if you're on a horse and somebody's telling you over and over, did you feel it? As soon as you get it correct, did you feel it? Same goes from here. You need to start feeling your body and what it's doing. So pay attention. Oh, my hip lifted. I gotta push it down, get them nice and square. We're gonna switch sides. So leg goes straight, hips rolled, hips are even, across and in. So getting very aware of every little thing your body does, you can actually start to fix things. You'll start paying attention as you're walking around, as you're sleeping, as you're sitting at your desk, things like that. You're gonna start to be aware of what your body is doing and can start to fix things. It's gonna translate to the saddle so much once your body's in line. So this is giving you a little bit of core stretch, but we're working on that glute right here. All right, now we're gonna go into the piriformis. So the piriformis is right here, kind of wraps around outside of the hip. So if you have a lot of sciatic pain, that nerve that shoots down, if you've been pregnant, if you just have a bad back, you have a lot of sciatic pain. It shoots the nerve pain down the back of your leg. If you have a weak glute, it adds to your sciatic pain. The piriformis sits right on top of your sciatic nerve. And when your glute is weak, it's not helping everything. So your piriformis has to try to take over, and then it starts to get pinched against the sciatic nerve. So we need our glute to take action, so your smaller muscle, the piriformis, isn't doing all the work. So we have a few different ways we can do this. First, we're gonna lie down, because this is easier for you to roll your hips. Make yourself roll your hips, and then you're just going to cross your leg, and you should start to feel it right there. So again, flex that foot just like you would do heels down in the stirrup. I want your hips square, so I don't want you here where your hip and butt is off the ground. Both butt cheeks down, level, and right now I can slide my hands under, roll your hips. So you want to not be able to slide your hands down. Right there. Switch it, see how that feels. All right. We can go to the wall. So once you get that movement, you can come to the wall. I'm going to stick one foot on the wall, other foot across. So this one's going to take it up a notch, right here. Flex that foot, knee down. So this is gonna make sure you're a little more level. So it takes what you just did, a little bit up. So now it's really gonna wanna push you up off that hip. So come back a little bit if you need to. Get your hips square and get your hips rolled. Keep reminding yourself. Heels down, flex your foot. And then you switch it. So again, don't let that hip hike up. You press your hips down. You're pressing that knee away. Roll your hips in. Get them squared. You might find you can get closer to the wall on one side than the other. It's just your imbalances you have. That's what we're fixing. That's what this is all about. And then all right, the next way you can do this, next level up, is to do it on the ground. So again, as soon as you come here, your back's gonna wanna do that. So you wanna make sure you're really good at rolling those hips first and then doing it and keeping nice and square. So if you're having issues with the first two, don't come to this because you're gonna be here and you're gonna be like, oh, I really feel it in my stretches right here. Doesn't matter if your hips aren't in the right position. So make sure your pelvis is rolled. So don't just push into it with your chest and arch that lower back. So we want to roll those hips in order to feel it. So again, it's all about everything tracking correctly. So roll those hips. Don't let your back arch. Try to drop your shoulders. So again, these are something you can do just while you're watching TV, whatever, you're just sitting there, stretch it out. All right, so this one is just a lower back stretch. So we want to stretch that lower back. So again, your core connects all the way around. So we're getting all the muscles loose and tracking correctly so you can actually use them correctly to help you with stability and strength and things like that. But it's not going to matter if I just tell you to do these crunches and your back's all arched and your hips are all out of alignment. It's not going to matter. All right, super simple. We're rolling our hips. Our knees are bent. We're grabbing right behind and we're pulling our knees to our chest. So again, you're pulling your hips off the ground and you should feel that stretch right down your lower back, down your hips. Keep your hips flexed, get your shoulders out of your ear, keep them aligned. So really play with your hips. What's gonna feel aligned is not gonna necessarily be correct. Your comfortable feeling is now misaligned. So your body has taken over for you and you start to do one thing over and over and over. So it's like, well, I have to protect the body up here. So it's going to make adjustments and compensate for you. If this feels okay, we're going to do this sitting. So again, you need to be able to roll that in, keep your hips in, and you're just pulling it down. So we don't want to just push it into our upper back. So lower back arches this way, upper back arches this way. That's what your body's tending to do now. We want to do it the opposite way. We want to fix those. So we don't want to over-exacerbate the problem and arch in our upper back. So we want to keep your upper back, pull in your lower back. Then, if you hold it for a few seconds and your hips are rolled in the correct way, you should start to feel it. But don't let it give into your upper back. Then if you feel like that's going okay, you can come here. So again, this one's a little harder because you have to really focus on getting your hips rolled and you giving here as opposed to I want to get further down and give in your upper back. So your upper back naturally wants to do that for you. So you got to be like, no, 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 that's not right. Roll here, give here, slow breaths, feel it, and then you can pull here. But again, I can get farther if I roll my upper back, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to stretch your lower back. Roll your hips, bend, breathe, then you can slowly pull. But you want to start with the other two to make sure that you can build up to this. So you may not be ready for this for a few few weeks, few months, just depends on where your body's at. It may just be a few days getting your body aligned that you can build up to this. All right. So I want you to practice those again tonight if you can. Do that as your homework. And yes, the recordings will be here later, so you can go back and watch yesterday's videos. You can watch today's videos. I suggest doing them again tonight. Go through your foam rolling and your balls again, and then add those couple stretches on. Remember, we're getting everything back in alignment, so it's not just going through the movements, it's actually feeling what you're doing, feeling to make sure everything is tipping the correct way. So everything you do, you start to pay attention to your hips. So remember, we want our hips naturally are going here. They're tipping forward. That's where we've put them with our desk jobs, with having babies, everything like that. Our hips have tilted, sitting down a lot. So even kids have this problem because they have to sit down at a desk in school. This is where we end up. So our lower back arches in, our hips tilt forward, and our upper back arches to create movement, so we can actually now move. So we want to be able to fix that. We want to roll in, have our shoulders up and back. As you do that, everything's going to start to get into alignment. You're going to be able to use your core better as you're on your horse to hold you stable. So go through these again, and I will see you guys.